Ever since Jose Escamilla first announced the discovery of Skyfish, there's been an awful lot of controversy, combined with a total lack of any physical evidence. Skeptics keen to debunk the phenomenon claim they are nothing more than insect images elongated by interlaced video recording, so for many the case is now closed. With interlaced video recording, each video frame is actually made up of two fields, captured at different moments in time, and if the objects recorded are moving fast enough to be in different positions when each field is captured, then the interlaced video frames can exhibit motion artifacts such as stretching and duplication of recorded images. So is there any truth behind the claim that interlaced video recording could be responsible for creating these elusive rod-like entities? As we can see from these video stills, elongation is a reality that cannot be denied, and it was found that any flying insect moving at a reasonable speed right past the camera lens will ultimately succumb to this stretching effect to a varying degree. This effect is even more visibly pronounced when the insect is reflecting bright sunlight, as in this case, and the multiple repeats of the insect's body and wings created as a result of this elongation will produce the illusion of a long white rod-like creature with what appears to be wing or fin-like appendages running up and down its body. Unfortunately, many have been fooled by this, and a large percentage of the images I've seen presented as supposed Skyfish footage, I believe, can be put down to this insect elongation. The amount of elongation is directly related to the speed of the insect and its distance from the lens as it passes by, and the stretching effect will gradually decrease the further the insect is away from the lens. Insects hardly reflecting any sunlight will barely be noticeable in the resulting video footage, especially when filmed against a dark background, although when filmed against a blue sky they will often appear as a black thin rod shape, or as a dark blur if they are too near to the camera lens. In this footage we see various mosquitoes and other flying insects, filmed as they fly through the sunlight at the edge of a dark woodland area towards the rear of my garden. This video footage was recorded at 29 frames per second using a Casio XLM digital camera in movie mode, and the insects were between 1 and 2 feet away from the camera lens when filmed. The elongation effect that creates the multiple repeats of the insect's body and wings can clearly be seen as they turn and accelerate, and this becomes more evident as the footage is slowed right down. Flying insects with much smaller or less reflective wings will generally appear as long white rods in any footage, with barely any appendage-like features visible, due to the fact that the image is purely made up of multiple repeats of the insect's body. In cases where the insect's body parts are non-reflective, or simply far too small to reflect significant sunlight, a dark or barely visible void will appear in place of the usual white rod shape, as can be seen in this video footage showing a swarm of midges that were filmed next to my summer house. This dark void is even more noticeable in the resulting video stills which are taken from the live insect footage. Slower moving insects that tend to fly in a circular motion are still subject to this elongation, although the overall effect is a lot less dramatic as this footage shows, and ultimately it is much easier to determine that these are in fact flying insects of one type or another. When these types of insects are filmed away from bright sunlight, the elongated image appears almost transparent and can hardly be seen at all, as can be seen in this example filmed against a backdrop of green foliage. So if we take these types of elongated insect images out of the Skyfish equation, then what does that really leave, you may ask? Well, the fact is, lots of other footage has also come to light over the years that looks nothing like these elongated insect images we have just seen, and in some cases the objects recorded have been missile or torpedo-like in general shape, with pairs of fin-like appendages attached to long cylindrical bodies with dome-shaped front ends, looking very similar to this infrared image captured at my research area near Oxford back in 2010. Other objects captured on video footage have been long and thin and javelin-like in appearance, and like the missile-type Skyfish, many of these also appear to have long fin-like appendages attached at intervals along their bodies. These examples were filmed in movie mode at 30 frames per second, using an infrared converted Canon G10 digital camera, which has an internal 720nm infrared pass filter. This filter blocks most of the visible light spectrum, but allows the invisible infrared radiation to pass through to the camera's sensors. These Skyfish images do not appear on the non-infrared footage that was also taken of the same scene, using a standard non-infrared camera in movie mode, convincing me that Skyfish are part of the invisible world and existing just beyond the limits of normal human sight. Many distinct types of these fast-moving objects appear to be present in the atmosphere, and although the fin-like appendages may differ in size, shape and general arrangement, the one thing they all seem to have in common is the same rod-like body. But even this can differ in size and end shape, as can be seen in these examples, again filmed in the infrared in my research area. We will now take a look at some actual invisible fish-like forms captured in the ultraviolet during my work with Quest for the Invisibles back in 2011 and 2012. These images were filmed using a full spectrum Sony Handycam fitted with an X-Night 330mm UV pass filter. This filter blocks the visible light spectrum along with a good percentage of the infrared spectrum, giving us an almost pure ultraviolet image. Because these types of objects move at such an incredible speed through the atmosphere, they will generally only appear in 1 or 2 frames, unless they are much further away from the lens. For this footage, the sun obliteration technique was employed, and nearby rooftops were utilised to block out the main body of the sun, creating what I refer to as the illumination zone, as anything passing through or just above this point will be totally illuminated by the sun's rays, making them visible in the ultraviolet for a fraction of a second. So as we have seen in the earlier insect footage, interlaced video recording can create the illusion of a long rod-like creature, but ultimately this is just made up of multiple repeats of the insect's body and wings. Once we look past these elongated insect images, it is quite obvious that there are other rod-like objects moving through the atmosphere that cannot be put down to this insect elongation. Although these objects appear to exist in the invisible, modern digital camcorders are so sensitive that they are more than capable of capturing invisible phenomena, especially on bright sunny days with a clear blue sky. As I have shown in my recently published book Quest for the Invisibles, skyfish are just part of a wider range of invisible phenomena that appear to be present in our atmosphere, moving silently and unnoticed across our skies. And as Trevor James Constable stated in his classic book The Cosmic Pulse of Life, from a technological point of view, there is no better time in history for looking straight into this invisible world than right now. Quest for the Invisibles is available now and published by the Book Tree. The book covers the first 5 years of my quest to photograph invisible UFOs in the infrared and ultraviolet parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, documenting the strange life forms and craft-like objects captured in the skies above my research area near Oxford. It also references the pioneering work of Trevor James Constable, as well as Italian UFO research group, the GRCU, and contains dozens of photographs and video stills showing some of the inhabitants of this hidden reality that borders our own physical world. Quest for the Invisibles is available worldwide from many different outlets, including Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Amazon.co.uk and Waterstones.com. The book can also be ordered from any good bookstore.